In this lecture, we're learning the Unity interface, playing around with a couple of things and making a zany little vehicle just to practice and have a fun little project. So let's get started. Now that Unity is finished downloading and installing, I'm back in Unity Hub. I'm going to click on Projects on the left-hand side, and then over in the top right, click on New Project. Make sure we choose the correct editor. This is if you've got multiple installations of Unity. I'm going to choose Unity version 6. And then within here, we can select a template. You can see in here mobile, and we've got VR and AR and a few other things. And we've got the type of pipeline we're using. Pretty much we have the universal pipeline and the high definition pipeline. Universal is what we're going to use for most of our projects. Obviously, high definition is going to be fancier and shinier, more AAA, if you will. But for us, particularly for this starter project where we're just playing around, Universal 3D is what we want. Change the name of your project to whatever you like. I'm going to call it My Zany Vehicle. The location, I'm going to put mine into Repos, Unity 3D Course Projects. Put it wherever you like on your hard drive. Just click on there and select the location. And I'm going to just turn off Connect to Unity Cloud because we don't need that for now. Click on Create Project. And then we'll need to wait a moment for it to boot up. If you get any pop-ups, then just accept those and wait a moment. I'm going to pause the video while Unity starts itself up. I'll see you back here in a moment. And here we are in Unity. If your layout doesn't look like this, you can go up to the top right where it says Layout and choose Default, and it should look pretty much like that. And if you want to resize things, you can drag left-click in between the windows just to move things around if you've got a different layout you want. You can also grab particular tabs and move them to a different location if you wanted to get it to a different spot. For now, I'm going to keep it mostly with this standard layout. I am going to get rid of a couple of these things here, this AI navigation window. I'm just going to drag that and pop it somewhere up the top. We can find it later on. I don't need it for now. And this other toolbar here, I'm also going to pop that up the top at the very top left of my toolbar that's up at the very top of my scene window just here. Now, with all versions of Unity, you're going to see some things that are similar, and if you've got a different version of Unity, it's going to look a little bit different. The similar things, you'll have hierarchy, you'll have project, you'll have the scene tab, and you'll have the inspector. Those things are going to be consistent no matter how far back you go with Unity versions, and hopefully no matter how far in the future. So if we look in the hierarchy, you see that we've got one thing here at the moment, sample scene. If I open that up by clicking on the little triangle, is that a chevron? I don't know, the triangle thing next to sample scene, you can see that we have 3 game objects currently in our scene. These things in the hierarchy are called game objects: main camera, directional light, and global volume. If I was to click on, say, directional light, why is that a light? Well, it knows that it's a light because over in the inspector, you can see that it has a light component on it. That's how game objects get an identity, if you will, and that's how they know what it is they're supposed to do. So this is a light because it's got a light component. If I click on main camera, it has a camera component. Now, both of those game objects have a transform component, and every game object in our world will have a transform component. Allows us to set the position, rotation, and scale. Let's go ahead and create ourselves a brand new game object over in the hierarchy in the big blank area here underneath my other game objects. Right click, find 3D object, and we're going to add a cube. And you can see that it's highlighted in blue, the word cube. I'm going to change this to car body because I'm going to make a car in this little project we're working on. I'll call it car body for now. The naming at the moment doesn't matter so much. We're just playing around with things. So don't worry about naming it perfectly and don't worry about breaking things. Let's do a little bit of navigation in our scene here. I'm going to hold down my middle mouse button and that allows me to pan around if you've got a middle mouse button. If you don't, no worries. There's other things we can do. We can hold down Alt and then left mouse button, that allows us to rotate. I can hold down Alt and right mouse button and I can zoom in and out on my game object. Another great way to navigate around is right mouse button to look around, and then you can use WASD to fly around as if you're playing a first person shooter. I can use Q to move down and E to move up where I'm looking from my point of view. Let's talk about controls to move and modify our object. So you can see at the moment we've got these handles. The red is representing the X-axis, the green handle is the Y-axis, and the blue handle is the Z or Z-axis. And that allows me to move this object around. And you can see we've got this weird symbol in our scene here. I believe that's the global volume. That's to do with our rendering. We don't need to pay a lot of attention to that for now. I'm just going to grab that and just push it out of the way so we're not confused by what it's doing. It doesn't matter where in the world it lives. We can just pop it over there. I'm going to grab my car body game object and I move that around again. You can see as I move it left and right and moving it on the x-axis, that our position is changing. So the x position, if I move it all the way over there, is now 3.22, and all the way over here is -6. I can type in this field, say 0, it'll go right back into the middle where it was before. Or I can mouse over the x and then drag left and right if I wish to do it that way. I can do the same for y, and I can do the same for z. If I was to right-click on transform and reset, whoop, it would go right back to 0, 0, 0 for all of these things, right back into the center of our world. In addition to moving, you can see here rotation and scale. These things also line up with keys on our keyboard. So W allows me to access the move tool, E is for rotate, and R is for scale. Why is R scale and not rotate? I'm not sure, but it's a little bit confusing, but there you go. If I hit on R, I can grab a handle and I can scale my object. Likewise, if I hit E, I can rotate the object, or I can come over here as we talked about before and I can rotate by dragging or typing a number directly into my box over here. And so I've scaled my object up a little bit. I'm going to make something that's just generally look like a car body. Hit R on the keyboard and flatten it a little bit. Here I'm going to make a van sort of thing. We don't need to be precious about this, just something to get us started. Okay, now what I want to do is add a cylinder so I can start making a wheel. There's a little challenge for you, a micro challenge. Go ahead and add a cylinder game object into our scene. Okay, that was a dramatic pause for you to go ahead and do that. I'm going to right click in my hierarchy, 3D object, and then cylinder. It lands right in the middle of my scene. I'm going to hit W just to move it to the side so I can see it. Hit E to rotate. I'm going to grab one of the handles here, the X handle, and I'm going to hold down Control, which allows me to snap it to certain increments. Looks like every 15 degrees. Snap, 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 so that I can have it line up perfectly how I like, or I could have just typed in 90 into our rotation field here. I'm going to hit R for scaling, scale it in a little bit that way and scale it up a little bit. If you scale on the big gray block in the middle, that scales on all of the axes. If you just do one of the handles, then it only scales on that particular axis. And there we go. I'm going to move it generally into position of where a wheel would go. I think I might have made it a little bit too big here, but we're going for comical looking, aren't we? We're not looking for photorealistic perfection at this stage. And that's my excuse anyway. Next thing I'll show you is the project tab that has our assets directory in it. All of these assets are saved to our hard drive. That's the difference between assets down here in our project directory and objects in our hierarchy. These are game objects that are located and living within our sample scene, and our sample scene is saved in the scenes folder onto our hard drive. I can show you that by right-clicking on this sample scene, show in Explorer. That will show me where this is located on my hard drive, and it shows me the size. So currently sample-scene.unity is a 12 kilobyte file. What we'll do next is click back on the assets directory, and I'm going to right-click to create a new asset within our assets directory. I'm going to create a material. So all the way up at the very top, you see create, mouse over that, and then find material, which is up near the top. That will add a material into our assets directory. I'm going to rename it Color 1 using the Australian UK spelling of color with the U. Apologies if you're from a different location and it doesn't quite make sense. That's how we spell it over here. And it's a little bit naughty calling it Color 1. Normally I'd call it blue or red or purple, but I don't know what color I'm going to pick at this stage. So my material is just called Color 1 for now. Over on the right-hand side, you can see in the inspector, we've got some stuff we can play around with here. You can see a preview of Color 1 on this little box here. If I move it up or down, it will change the size of that to make it a little bit more viewable. And if I scroll down, you can see Base Map has a color next to it. This used to be called Albedo. Now it's called Base Map. If I click on the white swatch, we get our color picker, which you can move around if you like. It's a window. And I'm going to choose a color for my wheel. I'll choose a fairly dark gray, I think. So you can move the color around the outside to get, I think that's called the hue. And then this is the value and the saturation, I believe. So I'll get something that's dark gray-ish. And once I'm happy with that, X out of that, and you can see the color has changed here on the preview and on our material. And then I can drag that onto my object, either dragging it straight into the scene or dragging it into my hierarchy. So dragging to the hierarchy, and it applies. When I click back on cylinder, which, you know what, I'm going to rename that now to wheel. And I'm going to rename it by clicking once and then having a delay and clicking a second time. Just call it wheel. So I know what it is. The next thing I'll show you is how to duplicate. If I click on wheel, either in my hierarchy or within my scene, and I hit Control or Command D, that will duplicate that. We'll make a wheel 1. I can hit W on my keyboard and then move this new wheel down to where the new wheel needs to go. Click anywhere else in my scene, that gets rid of the selection so I can see my wheel. And that's enough of me talking for a moment. It's time for you to do some doing. I've got a challenge for you. And that challenge is to make a zany vehicle using a variety of game object shapes and materials. Make your own zany vehicle however you like. Make it crazy, make a ground, make some headlights, make something falling out of the sky, whatever it is that you so desire. Don't spend too long on it, 5 or 10 minutes. This is not something we're going to use throughout the course. It's just a fun little project to get going, particularly if you're new to Unity. And then please take a screenshot and share in the discussions or the Q&A. That will be down below the video or over to the right of the video, depending upon where you're watching this video. Please do share so that we can see what it is that you've created. Now is the time where you pause the video, take on the challenge, and I'll see you back here in a moment when you're done. Welcome back. I'm just going to very quickly take you through me making my own vehicle, just in case you're unsure some parts about this. I'll speed up parts of this video and not take too long, just so you can see. I'm going to highlight both of these things. I was holding down Shift, so one wheel, and then Shift, hit the other wheel, Control D, so I can just move these across. Just copy them and create them over there. I'm going to create a new material. Once again, I'm going to click on Color 1, Control D to duplicate, and renaming this, I'm going to name this to Color 2, and Color 2, what color should we make this? We'll make it generally, I think, the Game Dev TV greeny kind of color, which is around about there, I think, maybe, possibly. And then we'll drag that onto the body of the vehicle. I'm going to find the car body, duplicate that, move it up, do a quick little bit of scaling. Okay, not too bad. I'm making a bit of a van here. I want to make a windscreen. I'll do that super quickly as well. Once again, I could create a new game object, which is a cube, or I can just be a little bit lazy here and duplicate and then move it to the side, scale it. Once again, I'll go through this nice and quick. You don't need to make anything at all that looks like mine. I want you to make your own thing. So I'm just going through this quick, just so you can see my process and you're not confused about, oh, how did Rick do that thing? Just making a weird little windscreen thing here, and I'll make a new material, right click, whoops. New material, click, Control D to duplicate. I'll change this to Color 3. And I'm going to go through the same process, duplicating and adding things, just to make a couple of lights at the front and the back, and a couple of other things, maybe a little bit of detail on my wheels. Note my hierarchy is looking messy and ugly now. I've got all these car bodies that aren't actually car bodies, they're lights and stuff. Don't worry about that. This is just playing around, having a little bit of fun and getting used to the interface. This isn't exactly how we would make a car in our actual game, but I wanted to do something fun for us just to start experimenting. So there it is, a quick introduction to Unity, the interface, playing around with game objects, and getting started on our first little mini project. I will see you in the next lecture.